My mother was a single parent with 6 very well-behaved children, 5 girls and 1 boy. My name is Brandy, and I was the youngest and very small for my age. We were all opened up to the paranormal at an early age. This took place in Hollywood, California in the late 60s. Mom knew her kids were all different, and she was very supportive. She would just tell us not to go around telling people because they would think our family was crazy. Looking back at life with my mother, I kind of tend to agree on so many levels. Something she always said stuck with me. People don't like what they can't understand. At the time, we were renting a downstairs duplex on Alexandria Street in Hollywood, across the street from this mean old lady. She lived in the back of this house with her windows blacked out and would scream at the kids walking or riding their bikes by. She even popped our balls if they landed in her driveway, and then she would laugh. I tried to be her friend because I loved everybody, but she had an evil soul. One day our mother sat us down and told us that the owner was getting a divorce. So she and her kids wanted to move back to our place, so we had to move. Mom knew that it was going to be hard financially to come up with the money for the move, but she asked us to have faith in her, so we did. Mom worked 3 jobs and worked mostly day hours, so the only time she could go looking at rentals was at night. All 6 of us would pile into this big yellow wood-paneled station wagon with a suicide seat in the back, and off we would go. The adventure began into the night. Most of the time, some of the doors to the rentals were unlocked. All of us were armed with flashlights, but we had to be very quiet. The scariest times for me was when the doors were locked, so me being the smallest, my brother would help me into an open window in the dark so I could run to the door and open it for them. Now I believe that was breaking and entering. My brother and I were very sensitive, so if there was a house that made any of us uncomfortable, Mother would scratch it off her list and move on. It was hard to find a house that fit all of us, especially anything my mother could afford. One day I came home from school and was surprised to see all of our stuff was being moved to the house directly across the street, where a mean old lady lived in the back. I finally found my mother and asked her what was going on. She told me that she got a really good deal she couldn't pass up. Just stay away from that old lady, she would tell me. It was an old 2-story house with wood floors and a big porch that wrapped to the side. 1 bathroom and 3 bedrooms. It used to be 4 bedrooms, but a small portion in the back was divided to accommodate that old lady. I must add that I was young and still very small for my age. That house was much bigger than the duplex across the street. Boxes were everywhere, and there was so much commotion downstairs, my mother was understandably distracted. I asked her why she didn't wait and let me check the house for anything bad first. Not wanting to make me feel dismissed, she took both of my hands and told me that there wasn't any time. It was a good deal and I had to take it, and that she also didn't have to use a moving truck. She told me to check it out now and report back to her if anything was wrong. Feeling very important, I went off to investigate. I went into the big kitchen, I went into the fancy dining room, and then I started up the stairs. Mom mentioned that there was a bedroom big enough for all my sisters, a place for all my toys in the hall, and a room for my brother, so I was excited to see this. The staircase wasn't closed with a door at the bottom. You went up 4 steps to a landing where it turned to the right, and then proceeded up from there. I got up to the top step when something got me. It felt like 3 cold hands quickly one after another grabbing around my throat with such force. I tried to scream, but the grip was getting tighter. I thought my vocal cords were being crushed. They started forcing me backward, with my head arched, and I felt like I was going to fall. But they just held me there for what seemed like forever in my mind, my toes teetering on the edge of the top step. I couldn't move. It felt like surges of electricity throughout my body. Then they started guiding me backward down the steps, fearing at any moment I was going to be thrown. I saw little spurts of my own breath coming from my nose as they were guiding me back down the stairs. I could feel only the edge of the steps graze the tips of my toes while I was trying to grip my foot on each step as I was being forced down. They led me to the landing and pressed my back up against the wall. It felt like 1,000 weights were pressing against my chest, still hardly touching the floor. I was starting to pass out when I heard a voice in my head say to me, "You are strong. You have faith." In my mind, I saw a white glowing light all around me, and I said the only word that came to my mind, which was the universal sound of God. They then lessened their grip ever so slightly, but it was enough for me to drop to the floor and run down to my mother. "Please, Mom, please, we can't live here, please." I told her what happened, but she said it was too late. We had no money and nowhere else to go. It wasn't long before everyone else in the family had their own experiences. We all hated that house, but we had to endure it until we could afford to move again. My brother liked to tinker, take things apart and see how they worked, if you will. He took the time to sometimes share that part of his life with me. I'd like to think that's where I got my inventor's mind and my ability to fix almost anything. He set up a workshop downstairs in the basement. I sometimes found some of my electronic toys being dissected so he could see how the mechanics worked. Then he would put them all back together on that workbench. One day, I was looking for one of my toys, a little furry barking dog that walked, and I suspected I knew right where to look, but I was too scared to go down into the brick-walled basement alone. I took my trusted cat. He will protect me, I thought. I started down the stairs with my cat in my arms. I got almost to the bottom step when the lights went out and the door to the house slammed shut. Scared to death, I reached for the railing and started to run back up when I saw something. The house was on 3-foot stilts from the ground, so normally you could see the moonlight from under the house through the vents to the outside. Something moving was blocking the light out and quickly coming towards me. It almost looked like a billowing black smoke from the back of the house. Just then my cat hissed and clawed me for the very first time to get away. He jumped from my arms and escaped through one of the grates on the other side. I ran up the stairs as fast as I could with my heart pounding out of my chest. I grabbed the door handle and jiggled it back and forth, thinking it was stuck. I heard a loud, long exhale behind me, followed by the smell of rotten eggs. The door finally opened and I slammed and locked it behind me. When I told my brother, he said that he never felt good down there. He kept the door always locked after that. My family was very involved in the temple. We cleaned it every Saturday and helped with all the events and variety shows. Funny thing was that our family was so big, it felt like we were the variety show. One such day, they were all at the temple doing something, I don't remember what. I had just arrived home from school, and one of my sisters, I think, was supposed to be there to greet me. As you walked through the dining room into the hall, if you turn right, on the left is a boarded-up wall to the tenant's dwelling behind us. That evil old lady. Next to her room was our main bathroom. If you turn left in the hall, you see my mom's room that she and I shared together. Next to her room was the door to the upstairs, and in the middle was the door to the basement. No one was home, and I wasn't going to stay in that house alone, so I walked into the hall and sat on the phone bench. Earlier, I saw my friend's dad's car parked across the street, so I knew my friend was home. I figured I would call him and hang out there and just wait for someone to come home. As I am sitting there, I hear crackling coming from upstairs. It must have been one of my siblings, I thought, so I went to the bottom of the stairs and leaned in on one foot. "Who's up there?" The crackling stopped. Thinking they didn't hear me, I yelled again, this time calling out a few of my sister's names. Still nothing. So I sat back down on the bench and waited for them to come downstairs. It was quiet. And then to the right of me, it sounded like someone was pressing their body against the other side of the boarded up wall. And then a muffled, quiet, evil giggle. It felt off, really off. The crackling noise started back up again, now coming from the top of the stairs, followed by an ear-piercing ringing inside my head. Feeling uncomfortable, I picked up the phone, not taking my eyes off that staircase. I dialed my friend's number, and before I could even say hello, I could see it as it turned the corner of the staircase on the landing. It was huge. It didn't have a human form. There were what looked like hundreds of eyes all over, and it was pulsating red to amber. The deafening sound of crackling was coming from it, with sparks flashing all over its form. It was slowly gliding down the stairs, coming towards me. I then heard more prominent laughter, almost like a cackle, coming from behind that wall, and I ran. I dropped the phone and ran straight over to my friend's house until someone came home. We only lasted 6 months in this house, so these are all the events that I know of within that time frame, and were confirmed to me by my siblings firsthand. The next event took place on the 2nd floor. Standing at the top of the stairs, to the left toward the back of the house, was my brother's room. Inside the door to the right was a short wall at the foot of his bed. Alongside his bed was a window with some curtains. Then a desk next to his bed, then an open space at the back corner near the closet. On the right of the stairs was all of my sister's room. It was long and big. The closet was on the far right, and then lined from right to left were 4 single mattresses on the floor next to each other. Late one night, at about 2 a.m., my sisters were all lying on their beds reading when my brother burst open the door. He was white as a ghost, grabbing his neck, gasping for air frantically, telling them all to go downstairs. He briefly shared his experience and then ran out of the room. At that point, he ran downstairs to wake up our mother. I witnessed this because I shared a room with her. One of the beds upstairs was supposed to be mine, but I always complained about seeing a man hanging from a rope over the staircase landing, and I had way too many experiences up there myself. The door swung open, slamming against the wall. He was standing there in a white t-shirt and pajama pants. There was no color in his face, and his neck looked like it was on fire. He said that he was just falling asleep when he felt a negative presence. Something caught his eye in the back corner of the room. It was the full-body apparition of an old man, and there was hate emanating from him. He started to sit up, but the man flew at him from across the room. He tried to describe it as quick, like 1 second he was there, and the next he was on top of him so fast. He grabbed his neck with both hands, gripping tight, and was choking the life out of him. He said he was nose to nose with this thing, and to this day can't shake the evil image of his face. My mother put a cold rag on his neck and calmed him down. We all remembered dark bruises in the shape of 2 hands that stayed on his neck and chest for over a week, and he never slept upstairs again. Through the years, he never wanted to talk about this until I told him I was writing our story. On that night, all of my sisters brought down their bedding, except one, my sister Rachel. She was headstrong and stubborn. She was the cut the crap, it's all in your head type of person, until it happened to her. My eldest sister, Linda, tried warning her that on numerous occasions she saw something dark lurking in the closet. One night she woke up to something pressing down on her while she was sleeping, but that didn't deter her. To her, we were all dramatic and crazy. I guess Rachel thought that it was kind of cool because she got that big room all to herself. One day she was upstairs taking a nap. She never slept without the fan on, and the fan was located all the way across the room in front of that closet. She was sound asleep when all of a sudden she woke to her finger being sliced by the metal blades of the fan. She was in extreme pain. She pulled her hand out of the fan and ran downstairs to our mother. I remember that there was a lot of blood. My mother wrapped her hand with gauze and papaya to eliminate scarring, and we all went up to investigate. The fan was still there, but it was unplugged. We couldn't understand how it even got over to her. We had shag carpet, so it couldn't have vibrated. It would have had to travel over some articles of clothing that would have stopped it about 5 feet away from the bed. And the plug was across the room where she said it was plugged into. After having that happen to you, and the fact that your entire family is now sleeping together downstairs in the living room, and the fact that she saw the fan that cut her was unplugged, wouldn't that make you want to join them downstairs in the living room? Nope, not her. She stayed sleeping up there for about a month until she was forced to believe us. By this time, she had made the room her own. She took 2 of the mattresses and put them on top of each other, and then put them long ways under the window. She told me that she was in the beginning of a dream state when she was fully awakened by pressure on her chest. It felt dark and evil. She couldn't move. All these things were racing through her head when she remembered what our minister told her. He told her to try to communicate with it, asking if it would follow her spirit guide into the light, so as she did, the pressure started to get worse. The more love she sent, the heavier it got. She said it felt like a cement slab crushing her body and expelling all of her air. I asked her how she got out from under it, and she told me that she prayed and said some things our minister told us to say. It eventually lifted. For the rest of the time we were there, she slept in the living room with us. Living there was hell. Every chance that old lady got, she tormented me. My brother and I both saw through her screen door some dolls. They looked like us, made out of our own trash, with things stabbed into them on her coffee table. She used to watch me through her screen door while I was playing. She would stand outside our kitchen door and stare at us cooking. My sister Melanie was in the bathroom, and we heard a shuffling on the other side. Being curious children, we put our ears to the wall and heard her breathing. Melanie was faced with her own frightening experience in the bathroom. While she was in the shower washing her hair, she opened her eyes and saw a face looking back at her in the shower. After that, I had to sit in the bathroom with her. I felt selfishly justified, because not 2 weeks earlier she thought it would be funny to take all of my art stuff and put them on top of the stairs. When I went up to get them, I was scared to death. When I turned around to run downstairs, I saw a man hanging by his neck over the landing. One day my mother gave me instructions to water the plants outside, and the water handle was outside our kitchen door. All I know is that my hand was on the handle, and she just appeared behind me, pressing against my back with her hand over mine on the handle. I looked up at her in shock, and our eyes met. There was nothing but hate in those blue-gray piercing eyes. She screamed in my face, "No water!" as she dug her long nails into my little hand, and her breath smelled of old cheese. I guess my sister Charity saw this from the screen door and agreed that she was fast on top of me. Charity burst out of the door and yelled at her to get away from me, or it would be the first time she beat up an old lady. The lady released my hand, leaving marks on my hand from her nails, and backed off of me. My sister then yelled at her to go home. So many things happened in the short span of 6 months that we were there. We found out that a man did hang himself on the stairway, and someone shot themselves in the closet upstairs. As for the old lady in the back, she was a very bad alcoholic who practiced the dark arts. She blackened out all of her windows to keep the energy pleased, she told the neighbor. No one paid her any mind. All of her food and alcohol were delivered by the store, and she never had any visitors. Everyone thought she was just a crazy old lady, but we knew that there was so much more to her story. I often wondered who she was before this, and what made her that way. What happened to her that was so terrible that it made her want to torment others, and even worse, innocent children? Was the evil man in my brother's room connected to her in some way? I guess I'll never know. Our minister told us that the house could never be truly cleansed until she was gone.